Welcome to the Deep Dive, your weekly shortcut to being truly well-informed without, all the overwhelm. I'm your guide today, and today we're plunging into a world where the fabric of reality itself is being probed, while right here on Earth, the very ground beneath our feet feels like it's constantly in motion. We'll unpack everything from quantum leaps in mathematics to the escalating tensions that are reshaping global alliances, and also the fascinating ways technology is both connecting and, well, challenging us.
Indeed. And our mission, as always, is to navigate this incredible stack of sources we've got. We aim to not just tell you what happened, but hopefully reveal why it matters and, how these seemingly disparate events are, in fact, threads in the same complex tapestry of our global society. We'll try to connect the dots and help you understand that bigger picture.
That's right. So today we're talking about some pretty mind-bending physics experiments, things recreating the universe's infancy. We'll also dive into the strategic race for AI dominance and that delicate dance of international diplomacy that could really change our world order. So if you're ready to explore how maybe a discovery in quantum mechanics might influence tomorrow's global economy, or how shifting political landscapes are felt right in your daily life, then let's get into it.
Yeah, prepare for a deep dive. We want to unveil the interconnectedness of our world, showing how, scientific discovery can ripple through technology and a political decision can shift global markets, ultimately affecting us all in some pretty surprising ways, unveiling the universe.
Science and space frontiers.
Okay, let's kick off our deep dive today by, literally recreating the dawn of time right here on Earth. I'm talking about the Sphenex detector. That's at Brookhaven National Laboratory in New York in the United States. So this detector is now fully operational, and it's designed to bring back the conditions from mere moments after the Big Bang itself. It's a truly audacious goal. It really is an extraordinary feat of engineering and physics, yeah. The Sphenex detector, which, just for context, is an advanced iteration of the previous Sphenex detector. It's specifically engineered to study what physicists call quark-gluon plasma, or QGP. Now, try to imagine a state of matter so incredibly hot and dense, so extreme, that it only existed for the first microsecond of the universe's life.
Wow. A microsecond.
Yeah. And in this extreme environment, the fundamental building blocks of matter, quarks and gluons, which are normally kind of locked inside protons and neutrons, they actually run free.
So they're essentially taking us back to the universe's baby pictures, but in a lab. How do they even begin to achieve that kind of extreme environment?
Well, they do it by smashing heavy ions together. And these aren't just gentle taps. They're colliding at speeds incredibly close to the speed of light. The Sphenex detector isn't just any collision detector either. It's built to make incredibly precise measurements. We're talking about particle production, energy density during these collisions. That level of precision is key.
Precision is key.
Yeah, because that's what allows scientists to truly characterize this QGP, to understand its properties. This whole thing has been a monumental effort, over a decade in the making. It involved hundreds of scientists from all around the world collaborating, and actually it recently passed its standard candle test.
A standard candle test. What's that mean in particle physics?
Good question. It's like calibrating a really complex telescope by pointing it at a star whose properties are perfectly known. It basically validates that every future measurement the detector makes will be fundamentally accurate. It confirms the baseline.
Gotcha. So what's the real insight here? What does understanding the universe's very first moments, these quark-gluon plasmas, truly tell us that maybe we didn't fully grasp before?
Well, the profound insight, I think, is how this experiment forces us to confront the idea that the universe, just moments after its birth, was this. Soup. A soup so extreme that the very particles we consider fundamental today were basically indistinguishable from each other.
Like everything was blended together.
Exactly. It's like realizing the solid ground beneath your feet was once completely liquid, right? And understanding that transition from that plasma state to the matter we see now holds the key to the universe's full story. It deepens our understanding of fundamental interactions, different phases of matter, and it helps refine the theoretical models we have about the universe's birth in this really complex phenomenon called quark confinement, why quarks stick together. It's really about pulling back the curtain on the very basic laws that govern our existence.
Okay, speaking of fundamental concepts that govern our existence, let's talk about pi. 3.14159, that number, that constant we all learned about in school. Well, get this. Scientists at the Indian Institute of Science, the IIC in India, have introduced a new formula for pi. And the really wild part is it leverages principles from quantum mechanics, a literal quantum leap for pi.
Slight chuckle. It is, yeah, and it's a truly remarkable mathematical achievement. Pi is just. It's a cornerstone of mathematics. It appears everywhere, right? From the curves of calculus to the equations of physics, and yes, even in quantum mechanics itself. Historically, the quest to calculate its value more precisely has driven significant mathematical advancements. We're talking ancient civilizations all the way up to the series developed by brilliant minds like Madhava and Ramanujan in India.
Right, so what makes this new formula so different?
This new quantum formula is groundbreaking because it uniquely combines classical series expansion, that's a traditional mathematical technique, with quantum computational techniques. The revolutionary part is that it offers a really unprecedented optimization for calculations. It converges not just faster, but with significantly higher accuracy than any previous method we've had.
Okay, faster and more accurate. So it's not just a cool math trick for a blackboard then. This has real-world implications beyond just getting, a few more digits of pi, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. The real insight here, I think, is how it harnesses these strange quantum properties like superposition and entanglement. Imagine doing multiple calculations simultaneously in a way classical computers just can't. It explores vast mathematical spaces much more efficiently.
Right, like parallel processing on a quantum level.
Kinda, yeah. This allows it to converge on pi's value not just faster, but with an accuracy that was previously unattainable. It's effectively running many series at once. We're potentially talking about a revolution in mathematical computation. This discovery could dramatically accelerate processes in fields as diverse as financial modeling, complex engineering simulations, advanced cryptography.
Wow, okay, finance engineering.
Yeah. And moreover, it has profound implications for the nascent field of quantum computing itself, where precision in fundamental calculations like this is absolutely paramount for the technology to truly realize its potential.
Yeah, that's incredible. And if that wasn't enough to kind of bend your mind about the nature of reality, physicists at the University of Colorado Boulder in the United States have created the first time crystal that's visible to the naked eye. Time crystals. I mean, for most of us, that sounds like pure science fiction.
It certainly does, doesn't it? The concept itself was first theorized by Nobel laureate Frank Wilczek back in 2012.
Yeah.
Maybe think of it this way. An ordinary crystal, like salt or diamond, has a periodic structure in space, right? A repeating pattern of atoms.
Oh, okay, yeah, like a lattice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A time crystal is analogous, but its periodic structure exists in time. It repeats a pattern over time. They exhibit this curious kind of perpetual motion, a repeating temporal pattern without actually expending any energy.
Wait, perpetual motion without expending energy? That
Yeah.
breaks the laws of physics, doesn't it? Or at least my understanding of them.
Well, it challenges our classical intuitions, for sure. It doesn't violate the fundamental laws like conservation of energy because they're in what's called a ground state, but they still maintain this periodic motion. The Boulder scientists created these visible time crystals by cooling liquid crystals and then exposing them to light in a very specific, controlled way. This process allowed them to display these temporal patterns that you could actually observe with your own eyes.
Okay, that's wild. What could we possibly use these for in the future? Perpetual motion clocks.
Slight chuckle. Well, maybe not quite like that, but the potential applications are fascinating. What's really key here is how they could redefine our understanding of matter and time itself. The visible temporal patterns could, for instance, be leveraged for advanced data storage. Imagine highly stable and secure memory systems, or even anti-counterfeiting technologies, where the unique temporal signature would be incredibly difficult to replicate.
Anti-counterfeiting. Interesting.
Yeah, and looking further out, they hold immense potential in quantum computing and clock technology. Their stable, repetitive structures could help overcome current limitations we face related to energy loss and stability in these advanced systems. They could potentially redefine what's possible in quantum physics by providing incredibly robust temporal anchors for calculations or measurements.
So from the very beginning of the universe with QGP to the fundamental constant pi and now the nature of time itself with these crystals, our deep dive is really living up to the deep part today, unveiling the universe, science and space frontiers. Continued.
Let's bring our focus a bit closer to home now, into our own solar system. We're hearing that NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, is about to announce a significant discovery made by the Perseverance Mars rover.
That's right. The announcement centers on the analysis of a rock sample nicknamed Sapphire Canyon. This sample was collected from an area called Neretva Vallis, which is within the larger Jezero crater on Mars. Perseverance. That's the rover that landed back in February 2021, right? How many samples has it collected so far?
It's been busy. It's collected 30 samples to date. And this particular area, Neret Vivalis, is really exciting for scientists. It's believed to have been shaped by ancient water flows billions of years ago. So any findings from rocks in this area could give us incredible insights into Mars's watery past and maybe even its potential for ancient life.
Water means potential for life, always the big question with Mars. So this discovery could be pretty significant for understanding the red planet's history.
Exactly. It advances our understanding of Mars, its geology, its climate history, and ultimately its habitability. All of this information is absolutely crucial as we plan for future crewed missions to Mars. We need to know what astronauts might encounter.
Speaking of things impacting Earth from space, remember those absolutely stunning auroras we saw across large parts of the globe in the summer of 2024? Just breathtaking.
They really were. But while they're beautiful, that very same solar activity that causes them things like solar flares and coronal mass ejections or CMEs also poses significant risks. We're talking risks to vital satellite operations, GPS systems we rely on every day, and even our power grids here on Earth.
Right, the beauty hides a potential danger. So how do we protect ourselves?
Well, this is where artificial intelligence, or AI, is stepping in as a critical defense tool. NASA's Frontier Development Lab is collaborating with a company called KX Systems. They're using AI to predict these solar events with much greater accuracy and lead time.
KDEX systems. Isn't there software usually used in finance, like high-frequency trading or something?
That's exactly right. What's particularly innovative here is that NAX's data analytics software, typically used in the incredibly fast-paced world of finance for real-time market analysis, is being repurposed for space weather forecasting. By integrating just massive amounts of diverse data sets looking at solar activity, Earth's magnetic field, historical events, their AI models can now forecast disruptive solar events, things like those potentially damaging CMEs, with an unprecedented lead time of up to 24 hours.
24 hours, that's a huge head start compared to what we had before, isn't it? Is that enough time to actually protect our vulnerable infrastructure?
It's a game changer, absolutely. That 24-hour window provides critical time for operators to take preventative measures. They can put satellites into a protective safe mode. They can adjust power grid loads to prevent surges or even prepare backup communication systems.
And this is coming just in time too, right?
Yeah.
Isn't the sun getting more active?
Precisely. This project is especially timely because the sun is rapidly approaching its predicted solar maximum, expected around August 2025. This is a period in the sun's natural cycle characterized by significantly increased sunspot activity, more frequent solar flares, and yes, more CMEs. So being able to predict these events helps protect vital satellite technologies and critical infrastructure on Earth. It really enhances our global resilience to space weather and the often unseen dangers from our own star.
Okay, so we're predicting solar weather. What about mapping our solar neighborhood? I saw SpaceX is launching a NASA mission called IMAP soon.
Yes, IMAS stands for Interstellar Mapping and Acceleration Probe. SpaceX is scheduled to launch it on September 23rd. And it's going on quite a journey about 1 million miles from Earth, out towards the sun to a point called Lagrange Point 1.
Million miles out. What's its mission once it gets there?
IM main objective is to study the heliosphere. That's the huge bubble-like region around our solar system that's dominated by the solar wind, the stream of charged particles from the sun and the sun's magnetic field. It will also investigate how solar radiation and cosmic rays, which come from outside the solar system, interact with planetary atmospheres, including Earth's.
So understanding the boundary of our solar system and how it interacts with the rest of the galaxy.
Exactly. This is crucial for understanding space weather in a broader context, its impact not just on Earth, but also on deep space missions, like future trips to Mars or beyond. It helps us understand the very boundaries of our solar system and the environment our spacecraft have to travel through.
And speaking of deep space missions, the Artemis II crew is getting ready for their trip around the moon.
They are. The crew, Victor Glover, Reed Wiseman, Jeremy Hansen, and Christina Koch, recently underwent night launch practice drills at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Artemis II is a critical test flight for NASA's entire Artemis program.
All right, this is the first crewed mission in the program, isn't it? The one that actually goes around the moon.
That's correct. It's paving the way for Artemis III and subsequent missions that aim to land astronauts back on the moon, including the first woman and the first person of color. The whole program is about establishing a sustainable presence there for scientific exploration, maybe economic opportunities, and also using it as a stepping stone for future missions to Mars.
And didn't I hear something about listeners being able to send their names along for the ride?
Slight chuckle. Yes, you did. NASA often does these public engagement initiatives. You can sign up online to have your name included on a digital storage device that will fly aboard the Orion spacecraft and the Space Launch System rocket with the crew. It's a neat way to feel connected to the mission.
A fun touch.
Yeah.
It really emphasizes that this is a big step for humanity, expanding our presence back into deep space.
It absolutely is a significant step towards sustained human exploration of the moon and eventually Mars.
Now, behind these big missions are countless scientists doing fundamental research. Let's talk about Ami Choi at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center.
Yes, Ami Choi is a research astrophysicist, and she's one of the lead scientists working on the upcoming Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope. Her focus is on some really big cosmic mysteries: gravitational lensing, dark matter, and dark energy. You know, the stuff that makes up most of the universe, but we can't directly see.
Gravitational lensing?
Yeah.
That's when massive objects bend light, acting like cosmic magnifying glasses, right?
Exactly. And by studying how light from distant galaxies is bent, scientists like Dr. Choi can map the distribution of mass, including invisible dark matter. She actually overcame some early challenges in math and physics to pursue her passion, contributing significantly to projects like the Dark Energy Survey before joining the Roman Space Telescope team. She's now the Deputy Wide-Field Instrument Scientist for Roman.
That's really inspiring. So her work and the Roman telescope's work is aimed at understanding the invisible universe.
Precisely. Unveiling new insights about the universe's fundamental components, dark matter and dark energy, and how they influence its expansion. Her journey is also a great reminder of the importance of persistence in pursuing scientific passions, even when things seem challenging initially.
Absolutely. Now, if we're going to be spending more time in space, maybe even living there long term, we're going to need infrastructure. Tell me about Rendezvous Robotics.
Right. This is a relatively new startup that just secured about $3 million in funding to develop what they call reconfigurable space infrastructure.
Reconfigurable. So adaptable, modular.
Exactly. The aim is to create modular and highly adaptable space structures. Think habitats, power stations, maybe even large research facilities, but built from components that can be rearranged or added to.
Sort of like space Legos.
Chuckles. That's actually a very apt analogy, yeah.
Yeah.
It's crucial, especially given the increasing orbital traffic we're seeing around Earth, not to mention the ambitious plans for long-term lunar bases and eventually Mars missions.
So instead of launching a whole new station, you could just launch new modules and snap them on, or change how existing ones are connected.
That's the vision. The real insight here is the shift away from these very expensive, bespoke, single-use designs towards a truly flexible and potentially reusable infrastructure. This technology could enable rapid, cost-effective responses to changing needs in space. If you need more power, add a power module. Need more lab space, add a lab module. It makes a long-term human presence in these harsh environments much more viable and sustainable. It's essentially revolutionizing how we think about building and operating beyond Earth.
But all this increased activity, more countries launching satellites, more private companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin, more missions planned, space is getting pretty crowded up there.
It is, and that brings us to what experts are increasingly calling a space law crisis. The foundational treaty, the 1967 Outer Space Treaty, was written for a very different era, mainly dealing with the U.S. and the Soviet Union. It's really struggling now to address critical modern issues like satellite collisions, the huge and growing problem of space debris, and even the potential militarization of space, especially with so many new state and private actors getting involved.
So the old rules just don't cover the current situation.
They don't fully know. What's truly fascinating, or perhaps worrying, is how the challenges we're seeing in space security so clearly mirror the geopolitical tensions we see right here on Earth. Experts like Helen Time, who specializes in space law, advocate for more proactive measures and clear intentions from all players. But what we're seeing is fragmentation. For example, you have nations like Luxembourg creating their own national space mining regulations. They're essentially bypassing global treaties and setting their own unilateral precedents.
Setting their own rules.
Yeah. And then you have the United States initiating programs like the Artemis Accords, trying to establish norms for lunar exploration among its partners. But at the same time, China is pursuing its own independent lunar ambitions, often in partnership with Russia with a different set of principles. These are competing visions for how space should be governed.
So it's not just a traffic jam up there. It's kind of like the Wild West developing.
Yeah.
And we don't even have a clear space traffic cop or maybe an interstellar homeowners association to deal with the growing chaos.
Tuckles. Well, while those images are amusing, the diplomatic challenges are profoundly serious. Without clear, internationally agreed upon norms and much stronger governance frameworks, we risk increased conflict, potential fights over resources like lunar water ice or orbital slots, and just generally a fragmented, unsustainable approach to space development. The existing legal frameworks were designed for maybe two major players. Now, with dozens of state and private actors, it really calls for robust diplomatic efforts. We probably need new multilateral treaties, maybe innovative insurance models to handle liability for debris or collisions, something to mitigate risks and ensure peaceful, sustainable space development for everyone. It feels like a race against time to establish some kind of order before chaos really takes hold.
A race against time. Okay, let's end this section on a slightly more relaxed note, something celestial to look forward to.
Yes, indeed. Mark your calendars way out in the future, March 2nd to 4th, 2026. There will be a total lunar eclipse, sometimes called a blood moon, visible across much of the globe, but especially well placed for viewing from North America.
A blood moon in 2026. Why is this one particularly notable?
Well, total lunar eclipses aren't super rare, but they are spectacular. This one is significant because it will be the last total lunar eclipse visible from Earth until New Year's Eve 2028. So for eclipse enthusiasts and amateur astronomers, it's a really good opportunity to witness that beautiful coppery red moon as it passes completely into Earth's shadow, a reminder of the universe's ongoing dance.
Something beautiful to anticipate. Good to know. The digital revolution, AI, and consumer tech. Okay, moving from the cosmos to code, let's dive into the digital revolution that's unfolding all around us. And you really can't talk about that these days without talking about artificial intelligence, AI. The advancements are just staggering, and China's making some really big moves here. The Chinese Academy of Sciences recently introduced something called Spiking Brain 1.0. It's described as a brain-like large language model.
Yeah.
And here's the kicker. It uses China's homegrown MedX chip platform, not relying on technology from companies like Nvidia.
Yeah, this is a very significant development, especially when you view it in the context of global tech competition and, frankly, technological sovereignty. Spiking Brain 1.0 is designed to fundamentally mimic the human brain's architecture, specifically the way neurons spike or fire. It only activates the necessary neurons for a given task, unlike many current deep learning models that activate much larger portions of the network.
Okay, so mimicking the brain. What's the advantage of that approach?
The main advantage is efficiency. It makes it incredibly energy efficient compared to traditional deep learning models. Furthermore, the developers claim it boasts the ability to learn effectively from significantly less training data. And maybe most impressively, it can process long sequences of information, think analyzing a massive legal document or a complex scientific paper, up to 100 times faster than some current models.
Wow, 100 times faster, more energy efficient, and running on homegrown chips. That sounds like a massive breakthrough, particularly given the current geopolitical climate regarding chip exports.
It absolutely is. From a geopolitical perspective, this is clearly a strategic move by China. It comes amid tightening U.S. export controls on advanced AI technology and the high-performance semiconductor components needed to run them. It showcases their strong commitment to developing homegrown, independent solutions and significantly reduces their reliance on foreign tech, particularly from the U.S. In terms of capabilities, this could genuinely revolutionize AI's ability to process and analyze extensive, complex data. We're talking legal documents, scientific research, medical records, showing significant advancements in both efficiency and effectiveness over traditional AI systems. The real insight here is just how quickly China is moving to establish its technological sovereignty in critical areas like AI.
And all this AI development isn't just happening in research labs. It's having a tangible impact on our wallets, especially here in the United States. Reports suggest AI-related purchases, everything from companies buying powerful servers to software subscriptions, are significantly reshaping the U.S. economy, actually outperforming traditional consumer spending in terms of its contribution to GDP growth.
Indeed. The projections are pretty striking. Some economists suggest that AI could add anywhere from 0.5% to maybe even 1.5% to the U.S. annual GDP growth over the next decade. What's fascinating here, though, is the duality. While AI is clearly becoming a leading driver of economic performance and productivity, potentially boosting innovation across almost every sector, this boom also raises significant, serious concerns about its impact on job markets.
Right, the automation question.
Exactly, particularly for roles that are susceptible to automation. And there are also worries about the potential for exacerbating economic inequalities if the benefits aren't widely shared. It truly demands a balanced approach from policymakers. How do you harness the undeniable benefits while actively mitigating the risks of widespread job displacement and further wealth concentration?
A huge challenge. And as fast as AI is evolving, there's this growing global need to figure out how to regulate it. And Chile is actually stepping up here, advancing a pioneering bill to regulate artificial intelligence. They seem to be positioning themselves as a leader in AI governance, not just in Latin America, but maybe setting a global precedent.
That's right. The bill, which was approved by Chile's Chamber of Deputies back in August 2025, looks like a thoughtful attempt to strike that difficult balance between encouraging innovation and upholding ethical considerations. It proposes a risk-based classification of AI systems, which is actually quite similar to the comprehensive approach taken by the European Union with its AI Act. And critically, it includes provisions to ban certain high-risk AI technologies, things that could undermine human dignity or fundamental rights.
But I've heard there's some pushback, some disagreement on that front, concerns that perhaps going too far with regulations could stifle innovation, maybe put them at a disadvantage.
Yes, and this raises a really important question that many countries are grappling with right now. Critics in Chile warn that overly stringent guidelines, particularly if they directly mirror the EU's framework without adaptation, could potentially hinder the rapid technological progress they see as necessary for national competitiveness. They also suggest that maybe an EU-like framework isn't entirely suited to Chile's unique economic and social context. So, while the intent ensuring responsible AI use, protecting citizens' rights, is clearly laudable, the ongoing debate is about finding that precise, delicate balance. How do you foster innovation while implementing effective, adaptable governance that doesn't inadvertently slow down progress or create competitive disadvantages? It's a tightrope walk.
Definitely a tightrope. And speaking of regulations, or maybe the lack thereof in some areas, there's a growing concern about something being called the privacy paradox of generative AI.
Mm.
Specifically, concerns are rising that data you put into these generative AI platforms, even if they're hosted in the cloud, maybe cannot be considered truly private.
Yeah, what's particularly concerning here is that the rapid advancement of generative AI technology has simply outpaced our existing regulatory frameworks. And in some cases, it's even outpaced our collective understanding of its full implications for privacy. This creates a significant potential for misuse, and it raises profound ethical dilemmas regarding user data protection and consent. Especially when sensitive personal information or perhaps proprietary business data is involved, many users might just assume their input into an AI tool is private, ephemeral maybe, but the training mechanisms or the data retention policies of these models can make that a false assumption.
So if I type something sensitive into a generative AI tool, maybe asking for advice or drafting a confidential document, even if it's supposed to be private, it might actually be used to train the model further. Or worse, become accessible in some way down the line.
That's the risk, exactly. It highlights the critical need for really robust cloud security measures from the providers. It also demands far clearer, more transparent privacy policies from these AI companies, and ultimately a stronger commitment across the industry to truly ethical AI development principles to adequately protect user data. The lines between what we consider public and private information are blurring in entirely new and complex ways with this technology. It's forcing us all to reevaluate our digital privacy expectations and perhaps be more cautious.
Reevaluating expectations. Okay, let's shift to consumer tech and connectivity. Apple just had a big event rolling out the new iPhone 17 lineup.
Yes, they launched the iPhone 17 Pro and Pro Max. Those are positioned as their most powerful Pro models yet. But perhaps the most interesting addition is the iPhone 17 Air. It's designed to be ultra-thin, and significantly, it's Apple's first eSIM-only device worldwide.
eSIM only worldwide. They started that trend just in the US back in 2022, right?
Yes.
So no physical SIM card slot at all anywhere?
That's correct. A big step towards fully digital SIM technology globally. The Air model also features an improved camera system, more computational photography tricks, and comes in some new colors. The Pro models, as usual, boast brighter screens and further improvements to their already impressive camera capabilities. And across the board, all the new products announced at this event feature USB-C ports, continuing that transition, and Apple emphasized enhanced user experience and eco-consciousness in their design and packaging.
How does the Air stack up against competitors? Samsung has thin phones too, right?
Yes, Samsung's Galaxy S25 Edge is definitely a key competitor in that ultra-thin segment. Apple is clearly aiming to sway consumer preferences with the Air's design and the move to eSIM, hoping to capture tech enthusiasts and particularly younger demographics who might prioritize sleekness and digital convenience. It's a significant step towards digital transformation with the global eSIM adoption, pushing boundaries in smartphone design, camera tech, and reinforcing Apple's market leadership position.
And it wasn't just iPhones. New AirPods Pro 3 were unveiled too, with some health features.
That's right. The AirPods Pro 3 are generating buzz because they reportedly include in-ear temperature and heart rate sensors. Plus, there's talk of live translation capabilities, although some reports suggest that feature might not be fully ready right at launch. They're priced at $249 US.
Temperature and heart rate in your earbuds. That's interesting. And live translation.
Yeah, the health sensors leverage Apple's H2 chip, which also enables improved sound quality, better active noise cancellation, and longer battery life compared to the previous generation. The live translation feature, when it fully rolls out, aims to allow users to communicate more easily in foreign languages, possibly by translating conversations in real time through the earbuds.
So Apple is really pushing further into integrating health and wellness tech directly into their consumer electronics.
Absolutely. It expands the market appeal of AirPods beyond just audiophiles to include health-conscious consumers, and it pushes towards this vision of interconnected devices that can do more than just play music now, including health monitoring and real-time communication assistance.
And that health focus continues with the new Apple Watch Series 11 as well.
Very much so. Apple unveiled the Apple Watch Series 11, along with updates to the Watch Ultra 3 and the Watch SE 3. The standout feature this year seems to be a significant focus on health, particularly hypertension detection and improved sleep score functionality.
Hypertension detection.
I
So
know.
the watch could actually warn you if you might have high blood pressure.
That's the goal. The Series 11 is designed to alert users about potential hypertension trends based on readings over time. Apple apparently expects this feature to notify over 1 million users with previously undiagnosed potential hypertension in just its first year of availability. It also includes enhanced AI integration for more personalized health insights and boasts up to 24 hours of battery life. Plus, there are new band options and updates in watchOS 26 to further optimize performance and health capabilities.
Wow. Notifying 1 million people
Mm.
that could have a real public health impact.
It could. It clearly positions Apple as a leader in wearable health technology, addressing growing consumer demand for health awareness and lifestyle integration, especially for managing chronic conditions like hypertension.
Okay, let's talk connectivity again. SpaceX is making a massive $17 billion bet on direct-to-cell phone connectivity. This means your everyday smartphone could soon connect directly to satellite networks without needing any terrestrial cell towers nearby.
Yeah, this is a hugely ambitious strategic pivot for SpaceX and potentially a game changer for global telecommunications. The ultimate goal is to provide ubiquitous global coverage. Imagine having a signal absolutely anywhere on the planet, especially in remote areas or during natural disasters where traditional cell service fails completely.
How would that even work, connecting my phone to a satellite?
They plan to leverage their rapidly growing constellation of thousands of Starlink satellites in low Earth orbit. Essentially, they want to turn that satellite network into a global cell tower network accessible by standard phones, likely through partnerships with existing mobile carriers initially. It's a direct and aggressive response to emerging competitors in the satellite internet space, like Amazon's Project Kuiper and OneWeb, but focused specifically on mobile connectivity.
So imagine being, I don't know, deep in a national park, miles from the nearest town, and still being able to make an emergency call or send a text for help. That would be huge for safety.
It absolutely would. The real insight here is how this could fundamentally reshape telecommunications. It could extend connectivity to the last mile and far beyond, providing reliable communication during major disruptions and significantly enhancing connectivity for potentially billions of users worldwide who currently lack access or face unreliable service. It directly challenges traditional telecom operators by offering an alternative infrastructure based in space, and it could significantly expand the reach of mobile communication, potentially bridging the digital divide in unprecedented ways.
A truly global network. Now shifting to entertainment tech. Spotify is finally rolling out its lossless audio streaming feature, right? Spotify Hi-Fi.
Yes, after much anticipation, Spotify Hi-Fi is finally arriving. It offers subscribers the option to stream music in CD-quality lossless audio format.
Lossless, meaning no compression, like the original recording. Why the delay and why now?
Exactly. Superior sound quality without the compression artifacts sometimes noticeable in standard streaming. The delay was likely due to various factors, including licensing negotiations and technical implementation. They're launching it now largely in response to rising demand from audiophiles and, importantly, increasing competition from services like Tidal, Apple Music, and Amazon Music, which already offer lossless tiers.
So it's about keeping up with the Joneses, and catering to the serious music listeners.
Pretty much. It aims to retain and grow their subscriber base by catering to users who are willing to pay a premium for that heightened audio fidelity. It could also potentially set the stage for more innovations in music technology from Spotify, perhaps integrating higher quality audio into other features down the line.
Okay, from audio quality to robotaxis. Lyft, in partnership with a company called May Mobility, is launching a robotaxi service in Atlanta, Georgia in the U.S.
That's right. They're starting with an initial fleet of autonomous Toyota Sienna vans. These are highly modified vehicles equipped with May Mobility's autonomous driving system.
Autonomous vans in Atlanta. Are these fully driverless? What's the goal here?
These are described as SAE Level 4 or potentially Level 5 autonomous vehicles, meaning they're designed to operate without a human driver under specific conditions, Level 4, or all conditions, Level 5. The stated goals are ambitious: reducing urban congestion by offering an alternative to private car ownership, lowering pollution through potentially electric powertrains and optimized routing, and enhancing mobility options for residents. Of course, challenges remain, including gaining broad social acceptance, ensuring robust cybersecurity against hacking, and navigating the complex operational liabilities.
Yeah, I can imagine people might be hesitant to hop into a van with no driver at first. Could this really become mainstream?
Well, the speculation is that robotaxis could eventually complement existing public transportation systems. They might drive a significant shift towards transportation as a service, or TaaS, models where people subscribe to mobility rather than owning cars. Some analysts believe robotaxis could become a prevalent form of urban transport within the next decade, depending on technological progress, regulatory approval, and public adoption. It's definitely a significant milestone in the deployment of autonomous vehicles, challenging industry leaders like Waymo and Cruise, and potentially transforming urban mobility while also addressing sustainability goals.
Transforming mobility. Okay, let's look at transforming how we interact with information. There's a new AI platform called TwinMind.
Yes, this comes from 3 former employees of Google X, Google's experimental research lab. They've launched TwinMind, which they describe as an AI platform designed to be a sort of second brain. Its core function is to passively capture audio from your surroundings with your permission, of course, to provide context-aware summaries and insights later on.
Passively capturing audio, like it's always listening, to help me remember things.
Essentially, yes. It's available on Android and iOS, and it aims to enhance how we interact with information and manage daily tasks. It uses sophisticated machine learning algorithms to process and understand the audio data it captures in real time, theoretically helping you recall conversations, remember details from meetings, or even summarize lectures you attended.
That sounds potentially useful, but also raises some pretty big ethical questions, doesn't it? Passive audio capture.
Absolutely. It immediately raises important discussions about privacy and data security. The idea of a device constantly listening, even if the processing is done locally or securely, requires incredibly transparent data policies and robust user controls. It could redefine productivity norms by helping individuals manage cognitive overload in our information-saturated world, but it simultaneously sets a precedent for future personal assistant technologies that necessitates very careful ethical consideration.
Careful consideration indeed. And AI isn't just listening, it's also shopping for us now. AI personal shoppers.
It seems so. The concept is gaining traction, driven by powerful algorithms developed by companies like Google and Microsoft. These AI personal shoppers analyze your preferences, purchase history, maybe even browsing habits to deliver highly personalized shopping experiences. They can automate routine purchases, make tailored recommendations, potentially even negotiate prices or find deals automatically.
So my AI could just buy my groceries or pick out clothes for me. What does that mean for retail?
It raises significant questions about the future of the retail industry, certainly. It also touches on consumer autonomy. Are we outsourcing our choices? And again, privacy, given the amount of personal data these systems need to function effectively. It could transform traditional shopping into a much more streamlined, user-oriented process. But it also has major implications for human jobs in the retail sector, from sales assistants to buyers. And it underscores the need for regulations as AI's influence in the consumer market continues to grow rapidly.
AI's influence everywhere, even dating apps. Tinder is introducing new dating modes.
Yes, Tinder is rolling out features called Double Date and College Mode. Double Date presumably facilitates setting up group dates, while College Mode likely targets university students, perhaps verifying enrollment to create a more specific dating pool. They're also retaining a For You mode, which offers the classic Tinder experience, but with more personalized matching options based on user activity and preferences.
So they're trying to be more than just a swipe left, swipe right app.
It looks that way. These new modes seem designed to enhance user engagement and target specific demographics more effectively. It positions Tinder more as a community platform for diverse dating experiences and finding people with shared interests or in similar life stages, reflecting the evolving needs and desires of users in the digital dating landscape.
Okay, one last bit of digital interaction news, this time from the UK. Unlimited contactless card payments.
Potentially, yes. The UK's financial regulator, the Financial Conduct Authority, or FCA, has proposed allowing card providers' banks essentially to set their own limits on contactless payments. This could potentially lead to effectively unlimited transactions using tap to pay.
Unlimited, wow. Didn't they just raise the limit to £100 during the pandemic?
They did. This proposal aims for even greater flexibility, building on that £100 limit increase, which was introduced partly for hygiene reasons during COVID-19. Of course, there are concerns being raised about security and the potential for increased fraud if limits become very high or non-existent.
Yeah, I can see that. If someone steals your card, they could tap away a fortune pretty quickly.
That's the worry. It aligns with the broader trend of increasing cashless transactions globally, enhancing the speed and ease of payments. But it definitely requires finding the right balance between offering convenience and implementing robust security measures like transaction monitoring and user alerts to protect consumers. 3. Geopolitical crossroads. Tensions and diplomacy.
All right, let's shift now to the geopolitical landscape, which, as always, feels incredibly turbulent. And we have to start in the volatile Middle East. There are multiple reports that Israel conducted a military strike in Doha, the capital of Qatar. The targets were apparently senior Hamas leaders residing there.
Yes, this is an extremely significant escalation in a very complex situation. Multiple sources confirm the attack took place. Hamas has claimed that 6 people were killed, including, tragically, a Qatari security officer and reportedly a son of Hamas's chief negotiator, though initial reports suggest some of the key targeted leaders may have survived the strike.
A strike in Qatar. But isn't Qatar usually seen as a neutral ground, a key mediator in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict?
That's precisely why this is such a major development. Qatar has played a crucial role as an intermediary, hosting Hamas's political office with Israeli and U.S. acquiescence for years, facilitating communication, hostage negotiations, and ceasefire talks. Israeli authorities have justified the strike publicly, stating it was necessary for national security and to prevent future attacks planned by Hamas leaders operating from Doha.
But the international reaction must have been intense, given Qatar's role.
Intense and varied, yes. It really underscores the delicate balance of power and the fragility of diplomatic channels in the region. The United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres unequivocally condemned the strike. He called it a violation of Qatar's sovereignty.
Okay, the UN condemns it. What about major powers? The U.S.?
Interestingly, President Donald Trump expressed that he was not thrilled about the strike. His administration noted that such actions don't necessarily align with broader United States strategic goals for de-escalation in the region. A somewhat measured response, perhaps reflecting the complex U.S.-Israel relationship.
I'm thrilled. Yeah. Okay, what about other nations?
South Africa issued a strong condemnation, calling it an illegal and unprovoked attack that violates international law and Qatar's territorial integrity. And perhaps most significantly, the European Commission, led by Ursula von der Leyen, took concrete action. They announced a suspension of certain bilateral support programs with Israel and even proposed sanctions against specific extremist Israeli officials, citing the catastrophic humanitarian situation in Gaza as context for their decision.
Well, suspending aid and proposing sanctions. There's a big step for the EU. What are analysts saying about the timing and impact?
Well, someone like Jeremy Bowen, the BBC's experienced international editor, argued that this strike effectively signifies the collapse of recent diplomatic efforts. He suggested it shows Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's determination to pursue military action, perhaps regardless of international pressure or the potential consequences for regional stability. There are also reports, as you might expect, that cracks are showing in the normally very strong U.S.-Israel relationship following this specific incident in Doha.
So the very nation that's been trying to broker peace gets attacked on its own soil.
Well, the irony is pretty stark. And it sounds like everyone has a different level of being not thrilled versus outright condemning.
Slight chuckle.
Yeah.
It certainly highlights the complexity and maybe the fragmenting international consensus on the conflict. Qatar's role here, as we said, is vital. They've been a major international peace broker, not just between Israel and Hamas, but mediating other disputes, facilitating the release of U.S. citizens, brokering that earlier ceasefire and hostage exchange. Their diplomatic influence really stems from their wealth, their unique relationships across the region, talking to groups others won't, and their strategic positioning.
And there's another layer to this too, isn't there? Something about advertising. Yes, adding another complex layer to the narrative. There are allegations, reported by some outlets, of a $45 million advertising deal between the Israeli government and Google. This deal is allegedly part of a broader campaign to counter critical narratives regarding the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. This obviously raises pointed questions about corporate ethics, the role of major tech giants like Google in shaping geopolitical narratives during active conflicts, and the transparency of state-sponsored information campaigns online.
Shaping the narrative. And what about Netanyahu's own stated goals?
Well, Prime Minister Netanyahu has publicly expressed intentions to, in his words, fundamentally alter the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East. Some experts and commentators have described this vision as potentially grandiose or even disconnected from the complex realities on the ground, questioning its feasibility and potential consequences. So, you put all this together, the strike, the international fallout, the questions about tech's role, the leadership rhetoric, it creates a very high risk of broader regional destabilization. It severely complicates Qatar's critical mediating role, directly challenges established norms of international law, and intensifies the debate on corporate responsibility and conflict narratives. It's truly a moment of profound uncertainty.
Profound uncertainty indeed. And elsewhere in the region, the UK seems to be engaging diplomatically.
Yes, the UK Prime Minister and the Labour leader, Keir Starmer, are reportedly set to meet with Israel's president soon in Downing Street. The Prime Minister is expected to emphasize Israel's urgent need to alleviate the humanitarian suffering in Gaza. This suggests a unified bipartisan approach within the UK political establishment to address the humanitarian crisis and the complexities of the conflict, adding to the international calls for more substantial cooperation and aid access.
So, increasing international pressure on the humanitarian front. And there was also news about another aid flotilla.
Yes, tragically. A second flotilla, reportedly carrying humanitarian aid from Tunisia towards Gaza, was apparently hit by a suspected drone attack while at sea. Details are still emerging, but this is obviously a very troubling escalation concerning maritime security and the safety of humanitarian efforts in the region. It indicates significantly increased risks for any future aid missions attempting to reach Gaza by sea.
Just incredibly dangerous. Okay, let's turn our attention to Europe now, where tensions are also extremely high, particularly on NATO's eastern flank.
That's right. Poland recently shot down multiple Russian drones that violated its airspace during a nighttime Russian attack on neighboring Ukraine. The Polish government deemed this incursion an act of aggression.
An act of aggression. That's strong language from a NATO member.
Extremely strong. Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki went even further, stating that Poland is now closer to open conflict than at any time since World War II. That's a truly chilling statement from the leader of a major European nation.
Closer to open conflict since WWII. Wow. What exactly happened?
This incident marks a significant potential escalation of the ongoing Ukraine conflict, directly involving a NATO member state on its own territory. The Polish military confirmed it took defensive measures to identify and neutralize these aerial threats as they crossed the border from the direction of Ukraine during the Russian assault. Reports indicate that airports in the affected region of Poland were temporarily closed as a precaution. U.S. officials have noted, quite soberly, that these kinds of incursions directly challenge NATO's defensive posture and readiness along its eastern flank.
And this is happening deep into the war in Ukraine, right?
Yes. Context is important. The Russia-Ukraine war is currently on day 2,294 as of September 10th, 2025. It's a protracted, brutal conflict. Reports suggest Russia continues to replenish its military capabilities despite sanctions and losses, while Ukraine effectively leverages increasingly sophisticated Western weaponry. Diplomatic efforts to find a resolution remain stalled.
So what are the specific implications of Poland calling this drone incursion an act of aggression? Does that automatically trigger NATO's Article 5, the Collective Defense Clause?
That's the critical question. Active aggression is a serious term, but its interpretation in the context of NATO's Article 5 is complex and requires political consensus among the allies. It doesn't automatically trigger Article 5 without formal consultations within the North Atlantic Council. However, this incident undeniably heightens tensions in Eastern Europe dramatically. It significantly raises the potential for broader NATO involvement, even if unintended escalation is a risk. It represents a critical moment in regional security, forcing NATO allies to reevaluate red lines and response options in a conflict that has already destabilized much of the continent. The debate will now center on the precise nature of the incursion and whether it crosses a threshold requiring a collective, possibly military, response.
A very tense situation. Meanwhile, elsewhere in Europe, France is grappling with significant political turmoil internally.
Yes, France seems to be in a period of considerable political instability. President Emmanuel Macron just appointed a loyalist, Sébastien Lecornu, as his new prime minister. Lecornu is only 39 years old, and his appointment defied some expectations that Macron might pivot towards a more leftist figure to appease public discontent.
This is Macron's third prime minister in just a year, right? After the previous government collapsed.
That's correct. It follows the collapse of François Bayrou's short-lived government, highlighting profound instability at the top. Macron's own approval ratings are reportedly plummeting, down to around 15% in some polls, reflecting widespread public dissatisfaction with his administration and policies.
15%. Ouch. What challenges does the new PM, Lecornu, face?
Immense challenges. Lecornu, who previously served as defense minister, steps in at a critical time. He has to negotiate the crucial 2026 budget, and he has to manage a minority government in the National Assembly. This means he might even need to rely on support from Marine Le Pen's far-right National Rally Party to pass legislation, which could further complicate governance and significantly shift France's political trajectory.
It sounds like France changes prime ministers about as often as some people change their streaming service subscriptions. Must be an incredibly difficult job to hold on to right now.
Chuckles. It certainly highlights the deep political instability and the difficulty of governing in the current climate. And the situation is compounded by widespread social unrest. There have been ongoing block everything protests across the country. These are largely against Macron's austerity policies and perceived economic inequality, and they've led to hundreds of arrests.
Ugh, everything shades of the Yellow Vests movement.
Exactly. These protests, fueled by stagnant living standards for many, rising costs of living, and a perceived disconnect between the government elite and ordinary citizens, have seen clashes with police and highways being blocked. Very reminiscent of the Yellow Vests. It's a clear indicator of deep public discontent over economic reforms and poses significant challenges to democratic processes. It really highlights the growing frustration with established political systems and economic hardship felt across parts of Europe.
And moving east again, another story involving Russia, but this time concerning Latvia. Latvia is deporting Russian citizens.
Yes, Latvia is reportedly moving forward with deporting hundreds of Russian citizens residing in the country who cannot demonstrate proficiency in the Latvian language. This is based on a requirement that came into effect back in 2022. Reports indicate at least 10 individuals have already been deported, with 60 more awaiting action.
A language proficiency requirement for residency. What's the background there?
The Latvian government states the law aims to better integrate the country's large Russian-speaking minority, a legacy of the Soviet era. However, the policy faces significant criticism, both domestically and internationally, with many viewing it as potentially discriminatory and punitive, especially given the current geopolitical context. Russia has accused Latvia of racial discrimination, which further exacerbates tensions between the two countries, already strained following Russia's invasion of Ukraine and Latvia's subsequent travel and media restrictions on Russian nationals.
So it's tangled up in post-Soviet history and the current war.
Very much so. It highlights these ongoing, difficult post-Soviet integration challenges, simmering ethnic tensions, and the deteriorating relations between Russia and some EU and NATO states, particularly in the Baltics. And of course, it has significant humanitarian implications for the individuals and families directly affected by the deportations.
And further south, in Turkey, President Erdogan seems to be consolidating power.
There are developments that suggest that yes. A Turkish court recently annulled the outcome of the Istanbul Provincial Congress of the main opposition party, the CHP. This decision is seen by many observers as boosting President Recep Tayyip Erdogan amidst ongoing political rivalries. Concurrently, Istanbul's popular former mayor, Ekrem İmamoğlu, who is a leading figure in the opposition and seen as a potential presidential rival to Erdogan, is facing forgery charges. If convicted, these charges could potentially bar him from running in future presidential elections.
Annulling an opposition party Congress and charges against a key rival. What are the specifics behind the annulment?
The court's annulment apparently stems from allegations of procedural irregularities, including claims related to money laundering and bribery connected to the 2023 election campaign finances within the party branch. However, critics widely view this, along with the charges against Imamoglu, as part of a broader pattern or strategy by Erdogan's administration to consolidate power, weaken political opposition, and potentially undermine democratic processes. Imamoglu has previously challenged Erdogan's political standing significantly, notably by winning the Istanbul mayoral election twice.
So serious concerns about the integrity of Turkey's electoral process and the independence of the judiciary.
Yes, exactly. These events raise significant concerns about the integrity of Turkey's electoral processes, the role of the judiciary in potentially shaping political outcomes, and the country's overall political climate, which many observers describe as increasingly authoritarian under President Erdogan.
Okay, let's zoom out now to the broader shifts in global power dynamics. China's President Xi Jinping has been actively promoting a different world order.
He has. President Xi recently convened a major summit, meeting with leaders from 26 countries. Notably, this included Russia's Vladimir Putin and India's Narendra Modi, among others. His message was clear. He's championing a multipolar world order and urging these nations to leverage their collective economic power and foster solidarity.
Solidarity against what, exactly?
Primarily against what China and many of these partner nations perceive as Western, particularly U.S., hegemony and unilateralism in international affairs. This summit is a key part of China's broader strategy to consolidate partnerships, think initiatives like the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, and significantly enhance its geopolitical influence. The goal is to promote a multipolar world order where global power is distributed among multiple major centers rather than being dominated by the West. The real insight here isn't just the rhetoric, but the active, tangible building of alternative alliances and economic frameworks designed to genuinely challenge existing Western influence and institutions.
A shifting landscape. Back in the United States, President Donald Trump's administration is also making moves on the foreign policy and economic fronts.
Yes, two significant developments there. First, President Trump recently secured a Supreme Court victory, albeit possibly temporary, allowing him to freeze billions of dollars in previously allocated foreign aid. Second, and perhaps more surprisingly, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance has publicly advocated for trilateral economic cooperation between the United States, Russia, and Ukraine as a potential pathway to peace.
Wait, economic cooperation involving Russia and Ukraine, how does that work as a path to peace, especially from a U.S. perspective?
It's certainly a departure from previous approaches. Vance argued that attempting to completely isolate Russia economically is ultimately unsustainable and hasn't achieved its goals. He suggested that President Trump is open to exploring more productive economic relations, even potentially involving trilateral projects, as a way to build bridges and create incentives for de-escalation. Vance specifically criticized what he saw as the previous administration's lack of a clear exit strategy for the Ukraine conflict. And he interestingly highlighted Moscow's past offers to utilize the U.S. dollar in energy trades as evidence of potential common ground, suggesting a more pragmatic, perhaps transactional approach to relations might be possible.
So using economic incentives rather than just sanctions, almost like applying the art of the deal to try and achieve peace, maybe finding unexpected alignments of interest.
Slight chuckle. Well, that might be one way to frame it. Vance's arguments certainly reflect ongoing debates within the U.S. about the effectiveness of sanctions versus engagement. And the foreign aid freeze, which sparked immediate legal battles over the scope of presidential authority, reflects ongoing tensions regarding checks and balances in foreign policy spending. Both developments signal potential shifts in U.S. economic strategy towards Russia and its neighbors, and could impact global alliances and future peace efforts. It's a definite divergence from the strategies of many other Western leaders.
Convergence indeed. Now, turning to a deeply concerning situation in Africa, the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Yes, tragically, the Allied Democratic Forces, or ADF, an Islamist militant group affiliated with the Islamic State. ISIS has carried out a series of brutal attacks in the eastern DR Congo. Reports indicate these attacks have resulted in at least 89 deaths in recent days, including horrifically mourners who were targeted while attending a funeral in Ntoyo village.
Attacking a funeral.
Yeah.
Just horrific. What more do we know about the ADF?
Survivors have described appalling violence, including beheadings and multiple coordinated assaults on villages. The Congolese Prime Minister, Judith Suminwa Tuluka, condemned these as barbaric acts. The ADF originated as a Ugandan rebel group, but pledged allegiance to ISIS back in 2019. Since then, their violence has escalated dramatically, causing widespread displacement and a severe humanitarian crisis in the region. The United Nations has repeatedly warned about the expanding influence of ISIS and its affiliates across parts of Africa, and this is a stark example of that trend.
So this isn't just contained to the DRC, it's part of a larger pattern of extremist groups gaining ground.
Unfortunately, yes, it represents a severe, ongoing humanitarian crisis within the DRC, but it also highlights the broader challenge of Islamic State's expanding influence and operational capacity in various parts of Africa. It underscores the persistent instability and violence that plagues regions like Eastern Congo, often linked to competition over resources as well as extremist ideologies.
Just devastating. Let's return to domestic U.S. politics briefly. There's that standoff between President Trump and the Federal Reserve.
Right. A federal judge recently issued a temporary block, preventing President Trump from dismissing Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook. Adding complexity, Governor Cook is also reportedly under a separate criminal investigation by the Department of Justice, though the details of that are not fully public.
Blocking the president from firing a Fed governor. What's the significance of that?
It significantly underscores the principle of the Federal Reserve's independence from direct political control. The Fed is designed to operate autonomously, to set monetary policy based on economic data, not political pressure. This court decision is a notable setback for the Trump administration, which has, at times, openly expressed a desire for greater control over the Fed's operations and interest rate decisions. The case sets important legal precedents regarding the limits of presidential power over independent regulatory agencies like the Fed. It fuels that ongoing, crucial debate about political interference in institutions responsible for monetary policy and overall economic stability.
Independence versus political influence, a constant tension. On a lighter note, related to the White House, Barron Trump is moving in.
Yes, reports indicate that Barron Trump, President Donald Trump's youngest son, is planning to move into the White House. Apparently, he's transferring his college studies to George Washington University's campus right there in Washington, D.C.
Huh? Living in the White House while going to college. That's got to be a pretty unique undergraduate experience.
Slight chuckle, I would imagine so, yes. A rather unusual intersection of politics, family life, and higher education in a very high-profile environment.
And speaking of high-profile figures in politics,
Yeah.
Rosie O'Donnell and her feud with President Trump.
Yes, Rosie O'Donnell recently claimed that security concerns related to her long-standing and very public feud with President Trump prevented her from returning to the United States for her daughter's graduation. She stated she believes President Trump would, in her words, use me to rile his base, implying potential safety risks or intense public harassment.
Wow. That highlights how deeply personal and public some of these political rivalries become, affecting personal lives.
It really does. It underscores the ongoing cultural and political tensions in the U.S. and raises questions about safety, security, and perhaps freedom of expression for public figures who become central figures in these highly partisan conflicts.
And finally, a situation that escalated dramatically in Nepal. Anti-corruption protests turned deadly.
Yes, a very serious situation unfolded in Nepal. The Prime Minister, KP Sharma Oli, has resigned amid widespread anti-corruption protests. These protests were initially sparked by a government decision to implement a social media ban, but they quickly grew, fueled by deeper public anger over alleged corruption and socioeconomic disparities. Tragically, clashes between protesters and police led to 19 fatalities and over 100 injuries.
19 deaths. That's terrible. What was driving the protests beyond the social media ban?
Reports indicate the protests involved many young people clashing with police, blocking roads, and even torching government buildings in the capital, Kathmandu. The underlying grievances seem to be deep-rooted discontent over governance, systemic corruption, a perceived lack of economic opportunities for youth, and anger towards perceived elitism, sometimes referred to locally as resentment towards Nepo kids, children of the political elite. The situation deteriorated to the point where the army had to intervene and impose an indefinite curfew in Kathmandu after police failed to control the escalating violence.
So, a social media ban was just the spark that ignited much deeper frustrations.
It appears so. It reflects deep-seated discontent over governance, corruption, and the lack of economic prospects for many young people in Nepal, leading to severe political and social instability and ultimately the Prime Minister's resignation. Trends, challenges, and opportunities.
Okay, let's pivot now fully to the economic landscape, starting with some concerning news from the United States job market.
Yes, the latest data released from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the BLS, contains some significant downward revisions to previous job growth estimates. It turns out U.S. employers added about 911,000 fewer jobs over a period than initially reported. The total revision across recent months actually tallies up to 1.2 million fewer jobs created than we thought.
1.2 million fewer jobs. That's a huge revision. What about the most recent month's numbers?
They were also quite weak. Only 22,000 non-farm jobs were added in August, which was far short of the roughly 75,000 that economists had anticipated. And adding to the gloom, data shows that layoffs rose by nearly 40% in August compared to the previous month.
Oof. So fewer jobs created than we thought, weak recent growth, and rising layoffs. What does this signal?
Well, it paints a picture of a significantly weaker labor market and, frankly, a poorer overall economic state than was perceived just a few months ago. It challenges that narrative of continued robust growth. And the real insight here, politically and economically, is that this intensifies criticism of Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. Many critics are now arguing more forcefully that the Fed waited too long to cut interest rates, suggesting the economy needed stimulus sooner based on this revised data.
So this could push the Fed to act more decisively on rates now.
It certainly increases the pressure. This situation raises serious concerns about a potential economic slowdown, maybe even increasing the risk of a recession. It clearly pressures the Federal Reserve for monetary policy adjustments, and it definitely impacts the overall economic outlook for millions of Americans, affecting confidence and spending decisions.
Interestingly, though, despite that somewhat gloomy job picture, U.S. consumer spending showed surprising resilience back in July 2025. It rose 0.3% that month.
Yes, that was the largest monthly gain since April, and it happened despite the persistent inflation that consumers are still dealing with. It's a truly pivotal moment for economists trying to read the tea leaves. It suggests a really complex interplay between economic sentiment, which might be cautious, and actual consumer behavior, which remained relatively strong, at least in July.
Why the resilience, then? Were people just ignoring the bad news?
Consumers, it appears, have adapted somewhat to the economic pressures. The rebound in spending was partly driven by things like promotional sales events, think summer sales. And interestingly, analysts also point to preparations for impending tariff impacts. Some consumers may have bought goods before expected price increases kicked in. There was even an uptick in discretionary spending, not just essentials. This indicates that while inflation is a concern, consumers were still finding ways or reasons to spend. It makes it a crucial signal for the Fed as they weigh potential policy adjustments amidst these fluctuating inflation and employment signals. The takeaway is a more nuanced economic picture than just the job numbers alone might suggest.
Nuanced indeed. And looking at the financial markets, the S&P 500 index recently hit new record highs. It even reached its inflation-adjusted peak from previous cycles. So the stock market seems to be doing great, right? Smooth sailing.
Well, on the surface, yes. Hitting record highs certainly signals investor confidence and reflects the market's continued upward trajectory, especially driven by certain sectors. However, warning signs are definitely emerging beneath that surface. Analysts are increasingly noting what they call narrowing leadership.
Narrowing leadership. What does that mean?
It means that fewer and fewer individual stocks are actually hitting new highs and driving the overall index upward. This suggests a concentration risk, where the market's performance is heavily reliant on a small group of very large technology companies. If those falter, the whole market could be disproportionately affected.
Ah, so the gains aren't broad-based. What other concerns are there?
Well, other concerns include rising levels of margin debt, that's money borrowed to buy stocks, which can indicate excessive speculation and increase vulnerability in a downturn. There are also inconsistent economic signals coming from other sectors of the economy, not just the strong tech performance. And, historical patterns often show that significant market corrections can follow periods of such concentrated growth and high valuations. So while the headline number, the S&P 500 record, is positive, the underlying health of the market might be more fragile. It definitely calls for some caution due to these underlying economic and geopolitical uncertainties.
Caution is advised. Now let's talk taxes. A study by the National Bureau of Economic Research highlighted a pretty stark billionaire tax gap in the United States.
Yes, that study found that between 2018 and 2020, U.S. billionaires paid an effective tax rate of about 24%. Now, that might sound substantial, but it was actually lower than the effective rate paid by average taxpayers during that same period.
Lower than the average taxpayer. How is that possible, given their income levels?
This research really highlights a significant disparity and points to aspects of profound economic inequality embedded within the U.S. tax system. The wealthy often utilize various sophisticated, perfectly legal strategies to minimize their taxable income. This includes realizing income as long-term capital gains, which are taxed at lower rates than ordinary income, utilizing numerous deductions, and investing heavily in assets that appreciate in value over time, but aren't taxed until they're sold, if ever.
So it's about how income is generated and structured, not just the headline rate.
Exactly. This finding raises critical questions about the fundamental fairness and the overall effectiveness of the U.S. tax system. And predictably, it has prompted renewed calls from some quarters for potential reforms. Ideas being discussed include things like wealth taxes, adjustments to capital gains tax rates, or closing specific loopholes, all aimed at addressing these inequities and ensuring a more equitable distribution of the tax burden. It's a debate with significant political and economic implications, obviously.
A debate that's likely to continue. Speaking of President Trump's administration and economic policy, the Supreme Court is involved again, this time regarding tariffs.
Yes, the Supreme Court is set to hear arguments soon on the legality of President Trump's Liberation Day tariffs. These were significant tariffs imposed earlier in his administration.
Liberation Day tariffs. What's the core legal question here?
This is a significant case that examines the legal justification and the scope of presidential authority used to impose those tariffs, likely under specific national security or trade act provisions. The outcome could have far-reaching consequences, not just for those specific tariffs, but for international trade relations more broadly, and also for domestic economic policies that rely on or react to tariffs.
So this ruling could affect current tariff structures and also set a precedent for how future presidents can use tariffs as a policy tool.
Precisely. It will impact the current landscape, potentially requiring adjustments if the court rules against the administration's justification. And more broadly, it will clarify the legal boundaries for future executive actions regarding trade policy and the use of tariffs, which have become a much more prominent tool in recent years.
Interesting. And there's also a story connecting the Trump family and cryptocurrency.
Yes, a Bitcoin mining company that reportedly has connections to President Trump's family saw a significant surge in its stock price, about 17%, following recent proactive stances from the administration on cryptocurrencies.
Proactive stances. What kind of initiatives?
President Trump's administration has introduced some initiatives aimed at establishing the U.S. as a leader in the digital asset space. This includes proposals or actions related to things like a strategic Bitcoin reserve for the country and potentially building up a national digital assets stockpile. Now, the stock surge for this connected company immediately raises questions about potential conflicts of interest, or at least the appearance of them, when policy decisions align with family business interests.
Yeah, that intersection of politics, policy, and personal financial gain always draws scrutiny, especially in a hot market like crypto.
Absolutely. It highlights that complex interplay in the rapidly evolving cryptocurrency market, where policy signals can have immediate and significant financial impacts, and ensuring transparency and ethical conduct is paramount.
And the rise of crypto is prompting warnings elsewhere, too. A Wharton professor warned about Bitcoin's threat to the U.S. dollar.
Yes, a professor from the prestigious Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania warned that Bitcoin's rising popularity and increasing value could potentially debase the U.S. dollar. The concern is that if Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies become widely adopted as alternatives for savings or transactions, it could erode demand for the dollar, which has long been the world's dominant reserve currency.
Debase the dollar. That sounds pretty alarming. Is this a mainstream view?
It's certainly an alarming perspective, and it definitely fuels the ongoing debate over the future role of cryptocurrencies, the need for regulation, and their potential impact on traditional financial systems and fiat currencies. While perhaps not yet a consensus view, it highlights the disruptive potential that proponents and some analysts see in cryptocurrencies. It questions the future stability of traditional fiat currencies and underscores the necessity for governments and central banks to develop a coherent strategy for navigating this evolving financial landscape.
An evolving landscape. And part of that landscape involves bank regulation. We're hearing reports that federal bank regulators in the U.S. might be loosening oversight measures under the current administration.
Yes, there are reports, often citing anonymous sources within the banking industry or regulatory bodies, suggesting a shift towards relaxing some oversight measures implemented after the 2008 financial crisis. This shift, which is apparently being perceived and, in some cases, welcomed by bank executives, could fundamentally change how banks are examined, what capital requirements they face, or how strictly certain rules are enforced.
Loosening oversight. Isn't that what got us into trouble back in 2008?
That's precisely the concern critics are raising. They argue that relaxing these post-crisis safeguards could spark renewed concerns over financial stability and risk management practices within the banking sector. They draw uncomfortable parallels to the deregulatory environment that many argue contributed to the conditions leading up to the 2008 crisis. The real insight here is that ongoing, delicate balancing act. How do you foster economic growth, which might involve reducing regulatory burdens on banks to encourage lending, versus the critical need to protect consumers and maintain broader financial stability to prevent another crisis? Any shift in oversight requires really careful consideration of its potential long-term consequences.
Definitely a fine line to walk. Okay, let's look internationally now. Canada's economy hit a rough patch.
It did. Canada's economy actually contracted by 1.6% in the second quarter of 2025. This was the first quarterly decline in almost 2 years. And the primary reason cited in many analyses is the impact of U.S. tariffs, which have significantly hindered Canadian exports, particularly in certain key sectors.
A 1.6% contraction. So the trade tensions are having a direct, measurable impact.
It certainly appears so. It signals a tightening economic landscape for Canada, directly linked to the growing trade tensions with its largest trading partner. This contraction was contrary to earlier forecasts, which had predicted continued, albeit slower, growth. It really illustrates the significant, sometimes immediate impact that trade policies and disputes can have on national economies, and highlights the challenges inherent in navigating complex global trade relations today.
And it's not just Canada feeling a slowdown. The Eurozone economy also seems to be decelerating.
Yes, the economy across the Eurozone, the countries using the euro, grew by only 0.1% in the second quarter of 2024. That's a very significant deceleration from the 0.6% growth seen in the first quarter, and it marks the weakest growth performance since late 2023.
It's only 0.1%. What's driving that slowdown across Europe?
It seems to be attributed to a combination of external pressures. Things like rising energy costs persisting, shifts in global trade patterns affecting exports, and generally cooling consumer demand within the Eurozone itself. This sluggish performance raises fears of a more protracted slowdown, or perhaps even stagnation, across the Eurozone economy. It highlights the global economic uncertainties that many regions are facing and underscores the need for strategic economic adjustments within the Eurozone to try and stimulate growth.
But while North America and Europe see slowdowns, China's stock market had a bounce back.
It did, yes. China's stock market experienced a significant recovery phase back in August 2023 after a period of weakness. This recovery was largely driven by renewed investor confidence, which itself was fueled by concerted government efforts to bolster the economy.
Government efforts. What kind of strategies did they use?
Beijing implemented several strategies. These included increasing infrastructure spending to stimulate activity, enacting supportive monetary policies from the People's Bank of China, the PBOC, like lowering reserve requirements for banks, and putting a renewed focus on boosting domestic consumption. As a result of these measures and perhaps improved sentiment, foreign investment reportedly flowed back into the Chinese market during that period.
So government interventions seem to work in stabilizing the market, at least temporarily. Are there still underlying concerns?
Well, analysts generally caution that underlying economic challenges remain in China. These include persistent issues in the large real estate sector, which has seen defaults and slowing activity, and also the potential for ongoing or renewed geopolitical tensions to impact trade and investment. So while the market bounce back reflected the impact of government intervention on market stability and investor sentiment, its sustainability depends on addressing these deeper structural issues. And of course, China's market movements have broader implications for global financial markets due to its size.
Always ripples from China. Okay, let's look at some specific business innovations and challenges. Fintech startup Ramp seems to be doing incredibly well.
Yes, Ramp is a fascinating success story in the fintech space. As of August 2025, they reportedly hit $1 billion in annualized revenue, and their valuation has surged accordingly, reaching an estimated $22.5 billion.
$1 billion in revenue for a relatively new company. What exactly does Ramp do?
They provide corporate charge cards, but they integrate them tightly with software for expense management and bill payments. It's an all-in-one platform for businesses to manage their spending. They've experienced explosive growth, reporting something like a 110% year-over-year revenue increase recently. They now serve over 45,000 businesses, and they claim their platform has helped these businesses save a collective $10 billion and millions of hours in administrative work through efficiency gains.
Wow, saving businesses time and money. That's a strong value proposition.
Absolutely. It underscores the high level of investor confidence in their model and points to significant unmet needs in the corporate spending management market. Ramp is positioning itself as a strong competitor to traditional banks and older expense management solutions, really shaking up the fintech landscape for businesses.
And speaking of tech giants and revenue, Oracle's stock surged recently.
Yes, Oracle shares saw a significant jump following the announcement of several major customer deals, particularly for their cloud infrastructure services. Buoyed by this, Oracle's CEO projected that their AI-driven cloud revenues could potentially rise as high as $144 billion in the coming years.
$144 billion from AI-driven cloud. Is that realistic?
It's certainly an ambitious projection, but it reflects a strong market response to Oracle's new cloud contracts and, more broadly, the overall market trends favoring large tech firms that are successfully leveraging AI to enhance their cloud offerings. It indicates the growing financial power and perceived potential of artificial intelligence within the lucrative cloud computing sector, and how central AI has become to corporate valuations and future growth narratives for these big tech players.
AI driving profits. Now, for a more sobering business story, the Danish pharmaceutical firm behind the blockbuster weight loss drugs, Ozempic and Wegovy, announced major job cuts.
Yes, Novo Nordisk announced plans to cut 9,000 jobs globally. They stated this difficult decision was due to declining profits resulting from the increasing market penetration of generic alternatives, or what some might call knockoff versions of their GLP-1 agonist drugs.
Knockoffs are eating into Ozempic profits. I thought those drugs were still relatively new and protected.
Slight chuckle. Well, the Ozempic gold rush seems to be hitting a snag, perhaps sooner than expected. While the core patents might still be in place, the market dynamics are complex. Market saturation from cheaper imitation drugs, possibly exploiting different formulations or loopholes, or coming from compounding pharmacies, can significantly erode market share for the original brand. This challenges the company's premium pricing strategy and overall profitability. The job cuts are described as part of a broader strategy to streamline operations and prioritize investments in future drug development pipelines. But it starkly highlights the challenges pharmaceutical companies face in maintaining profitability once blockbuster drugs face generic or alternative competition, impacting employment and potentially the pace of future innovation if profits used for R&D decline.
The life cycle of a blockbuster drug. And finally, some advertising news. Alcohol brands Strongbow and Jägermeister pulled ads.
Yes, both Strongbow cider and Jägermeister liqueur withdrew specific social media advertisements following rulings from advertising watchdogs, likely the Advertising Standards Authority, ASA, in the UK. The watchdog upheld complaints that the ads were either misleading in their portrayal of the product or potentially glamorized excessive drinking, violating advertising standards.
So they crossed a line in responsible advertising.
It seems the regulators thought so. This reflects increasing scrutiny on alcohol advertising, particularly on social media platforms where younger audiences might be exposed. It underscores the need for alcohol brands to align strictly with responsible drinking guidelines and avoid any messaging that could be seen as promoting irresponsible consumption. It highlights an increasingly stringent regulatory environment and the ongoing challenge for the industry in balancing effective marketing with ethical considerations and public health concerns.
Okay, we also have a few other economic and business snippets to quickly touch upon.
Right. Down in Lamarck, Texas, in the U.S., city officials approved a plan from their interim city manager to tackle an imminent cash flow crisis, focusing on optimizing resources while trying to maintain essential public services. A local government challenge.
And in the Caribbean insurance sector.
Ruben Verasimi, a senior vice president for the Caribbean region at the financial software company Equisoft, was appointed to the board of the International Association of Consultants, or IAC. This highlights ongoing efforts to modernize the insurance sector across the Caribbean islands.
Okay. And Parkland Corporation.
Parkland Corporation, which is an international fuel distributor based in Canada, announced a dividend payment for its shareholders of $0.36 per share. They emphasize their strategic focus on customer loyalty, customer advantage, and efficient supply chains, supply advantage, along with investment in renewable fuels. Standard corporate financial news.
And finally, a concerning note about U.S. firms in China.
Yes, a recent survey report indicated that American companies operating in China are facing what's described as record pessimism. This is attributed to a combination of factors: ongoing geopolitical tensions between the U.S. and China, increasingly intense competition from local Chinese firms, and the general economic downturn in China impacting consumer demand and business activity. It reflects the broader challenges and uncertainties facing international businesses operating in the complex Chinese market today. V. Health, society, and daily life.
All right, let's shift gears now to health, society, and aspects of daily life, starting with a serious public health challenge in New York City, United States.
Yes, New York City is facing a persistent air quality crisis, primarily due to fine particulate matter known as PM 2.5. This pollution comes from multiple sources, including heavy urban traffic emissions, building heating systems, and unfortunately, smoke drifting down from increasingly frequent and intense Canadian wildfires, exacerbated by climate change.
PM 2.5, that's the really small stuff that gets deep into your lungs, right? What are the health impacts?
Exactly. It's incredibly small, less than 2.5 micrometers in diameter. George Thurston, a prominent air pollution scholar, highlights how PM 2.5 can penetrate deep into the lungs and even enter the bloodstream, causing cardiovascular and respiratory problems. Tragically, long-term exposure to these levels in NYC is linked to an estimated 2,000 premature deaths annually. Thurston also criticizes the standard U.S. Air Quality Index, or AQI, arguing it can sometimes downplay the dangers of PM 2.5 compared to other pollutants like ozone.
And it's not just outdoors, is it? I heard even the subway system has issues.
That's another concerning finding. Studies have shown that PM 2.5 levels, particularly metal dust from train wheels and brakes inside some New York City subway stations, often exceed the EPA's outdoor air quality standards. So it's a significant public health threat both above and below ground, requiring continued adherence to air quality regulations, a focus on environmental justice as pollution often disproportionately affects certain neighborhoods, and ongoing public vigilance, especially on poor air quality days.
A constant threat. And related to invisible threats, let's talk about nanoplastics.
Yes, this is a growing area of concern. We know about microplastics, but nanoplastics are even smaller, less than 1 micrometer in size, basically invisible. German and Australian researchers have now developed a new, simple optical sieve test strip that can effectively detect these nanoplastics in liquids.
Why are nanoplastics such a worry? Are they worse than microplastics?
They pose potentially severe risks to human health precisely because they are so small. Their size allows them to potentially penetrate biological barriers like the intestinal wall or even the blood-brain barrier, which larger particles cannot do. Nanoplastics arise from the further breakdown of larger plastic debris, and they are now considered ubiquitous in our environment, found in oceans, soil, air, and consequently, potentially in our food and water. They can bioaccumulate in food chains, meaning they concentrate as they move up from smaller organisms to larger ones, including humans.
And this new test makes detection easier.
Yes, the new test strip is designed to be cost-effective and scalable, which is critical for widespread monitoring of food products, drinking water, and environmental samples. And adding a twist to this whole issue. Remember how we often assume glass bottles are the safe, clean alternative to plastic?
Yeah, definitely. Better for health and the environment, right?
Well, a recent study challenged that assumption quite dramatically. It found that, counterintuitively, glass bottles can actually contain higher levels of microplastics than plastic ones. This might be due to the manufacturing process, or perhaps the caps used on glass bottles shedding particles.
Wait, seriously? My glass water bottle might have more microplastics than a plastic one. That really changes my perception.
It's a surprising finding, isn't it? It underscores how complex this issue is. It makes accurate detection methods for both micro and nanoplastics absolutely critical for food safety, public health assessments, and for developing effective regulatory policies and remediation strategies for plastic pollution. Our understanding of the sources and true impacts is still evolving rapidly.
Evolving rapidly. Okay, let's talk about another major health issue. The global obesity epidemic.
It's a huge crisis. Data shows that ultra-processed foods, or UPFs, now account for over half of the daily caloric intake in countries like the United States and the United Kingdom. And these UPFs, think packaged snacks, sugary drinks, ready meals, are strongly linked to rising rates of obesity and related non-communicable diseases like type 2 diabetes and heart disease. Globally, the statistics are stark. Childhood obesity, for example, has tragically tripled since the year 2000.
Over half our calories from UPFs. Why are they so prevalent?
They're often deliberately engineered by the food industry to be hyperpalatable, intensely rewarding to our brains due to high levels of sugar, salt, fat, and additives. They're also incredibly convenient and often cheaper than fresh whole foods. This makes them very difficult for many people to avoid. In response, organizations like UNICEF, the United Nations Children's Fund, advocate for stronger public health policies. These include things like mandatory front-of-pack nutrition labeling, stricter regulations on marketing these foods, especially to children, and policies to improve access to affordable, nutritious whole foods. Some countries are taking action. For example, Mexico has banned the sale of sugary drinks in schools.
So policy changes are one angle, but there's also some fascinating science coming out aimed at tackling obesity biologically, right?
Yes, exactly. There are several interesting research avenues. For instance, researchers at Sichuan University in China have developed tiny, ingestible pellets made from seaweed, green tea extract, and vitamin E. The idea is that these pellets are designed to trap dietary fats within the gut, essentially preventing their absorption into the body. Early stages, but intriguing.
Seaweed pellets trapping fat. What else?
Kelp, another type of seaweed, is also being studied. Kelp extract appears to nourish beneficial gut bacteria, which can aid digestion and potentially promote feelings of fullness, helping with appetite control. Plus, kelp is a highly sustainable food source, and on a more fundamental level, scientists have identified a protein called CHP1 calcineurin B homologous protein 1.
CHP1. What does that do?
This protein seems to play a key role in controlling how our bodies produce and distribute fat. It does this by facilitating certain cellular mechanisms, sodium-hydrogen exchangers, which are essential for overall cellular metabolism. Understanding how CHP1 works could open doors to new therapeutic targets for metabolic disorders. So we're seeing this multi-pronged approach: policy interventions, dietary strategies focusing on gut health, and fundamental biological research. It offers a potentially comprehensive attack on this global health crisis, providing insights into dietary impacts and potential future scientific interventions for obesity.
Fascinating science. And related to long-term health, diet is key for preventing dementia and heart disease, too.
Absolutely. A long-term study spanning 15 years from the Karolinska Institute in Sweden provided more strong evidence for this. It linked diets rich in vegetables, whole grains, nuts, and healthy fats, essentially, the components of a Mediterranean-style diet, to a significant delay in the onset of both dementia and heart disease in older adults. Conversely, the study confirmed that diets high in inflammatory foods like red meat, sugary drinks, and highly processed items exacerbate the risks for these conditions.
So the Mediterranean diet model holds up again.
It really does. The study analyzed data from over 2,400 senior participants, and the findings strongly emphasize the protective effects of this eating pattern. It's crucial information for managing health as we age, providing clear guidance on nutritional choices that can contribute to healthier, longer lives.
And for Alzheimer's disease specifically, early detection is so important. There's news about a promising blood test.
Yes, this is potentially huge for millions of families. New research has unveiled a blood test that appears capable of identifying specific proteins in the blood that are linked to brain injury and inflammation. Crucially, the levels of these proteins strongly correlate with early signs of cognitive decline, often years before overt symptoms of Alzheimer's disease become apparent.
A blood test instead of, say, expensive brain scans or invasive spinal taps.
Exactly. This could truly revolutionize Alzheimer's diagnostics. It's less invasive, likely much cheaper, and potentially more accessible. The research also suggests it could be particularly beneficial for diagnosing the disease earlier in diverse populations, including Hispanic and Latino adults who are sometimes underrepresented in Alzheimer's research and may face barriers to traditional diagnostic methods. It offers genuine hope for timely intervention, allowing individuals to make crucial lifestyle modifications, participate in clinical trials for new treatments, or simply plan for the future, potentially reducing the immense emotional and financial burden associated with this devastating disease.
That's incredibly hopeful news. Now, for something completely different, cleaning clothes with blue light.
Slight chuckle. Yes, a bit of a change of pace, but quite interesting. A recent study revealed that powerful blue LED light can effectively eliminate common yellow stains, the kind you get from sweat, food oils, or things like beta-carotene from carrots, especially on delicate fabrics like silk.
Blue light gets rid of stains. How does that work? Does it bleach them?
Apparently, it uses the oxygen already present in the air as a natural oxidizer. The specific wavelength of blue light activates the oxygen molecules, which then break down the stain-causing compounds like beta-carotene and lycopene. The study found it outperformed some traditional cleaning methods for these types of stains on delicate fabrics without using harsh chemical cleaners. So it offers a potentially sustainable and gentler alternative for fabric care, promoting longer-lasting textiles with a lower environmental impact. Could be part of future washing machines, perhaps?
Blue light cycles, maybe. Okay, back to U.S. policy and health. President Trump signed an executive action related to pharmaceutical ads.
Yes, President Trump signed an executive action aimed at cracking down on certain types of pharmaceutical advertisements. This action coincided with the promotion of Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s Make Our Children Healthy Again, or MAHA roadmap, which focuses on modernizing vaccines and improving children's overall health, though it has faced scrutiny for some of its specific claims and lack of detail.
So Trump cracking down on pharma ads, while RFK Jr. promotes his child health plan. What's the connection or context?
Well, RFK Jr.'s plan, while sometimes controversial and lacking detailed specifics on implementation, has garnered interest among certain groups concerned about children's health trends. President Trump's executive action seems aimed at enforcing stricter regulations on direct-to-consumer pharmaceutical marketing, likely fueled by rising public and political concerns about the influence of pharma advertising on healthcare costs, prescribing habits, and public health outcomes, particularly regarding children. It highlights that complex intersection of political strategies, public health priorities, and debates around pharmaceutical ethics, potentially shaping future health policy and marketing regulations in the U.S.
Always a complex mix. Let's turn to some specific local news stories now that might have broader implications. First, a case from Flint, Michigan in the U.S.
Yes, a tragic case. A father from Flint, Michael Tolbert, pled no contest to charges related to Michigan's firearms safe storage law. This was reportedly the first prosecution under the state's new law, which mandates secure storage of firearms. The charges stemmed from a heartbreaking incident in 2024 where his 2-year-old daughter accidentally shot herself with an unsecured firearm in their home.
Oh, that's just awful. The first case under a new safe storage law.
Exactly. This case starkly raises concerns about gun safety and the responsibilities of firearm owners, particularly around children. It's sparking broader discussions across the U.S. about the effectiveness and necessity of gun storage laws, with many states considering or implementing stricter requirements nationwide. It highlights the human cost of accidental shootings, the critical importance of safe storage practices, and the evolving legal landscape around firearm ownership and responsibility.
And another disturbing story involving guns and a minor. A 13-year-old arrested.
Yes, police in an undisclosed locality arrested a 13-year-old boy who was found to be in possession of 23 guns and a significant amount of ammunition. The arrest followed social media posts attributed to the boy indicating intentions to commit violence, possibly a school shooting. He has pleaded not guilty to 5 charges, including 4 felonies.
23 guns at 13. How is that even possible?
Reports suggest the boy was described as having an obsession with school shootings. The case Yes, sadly, a woman died while attempting to cross the English Channel from France to the UK in a small, likely overcrowded migrant boat. On the same day this tragedy occurred, approximately 500 other individuals reportedly made the dangerous crossing successfully in similar small boats.
500 in one day. And 1 death. It highlights the desperation.
It absolutely does. It underscores the incredibly perilous journeys undertaken by migrants and asylum seekers trying to reach the UK. It raises urgent concerns about the safety risks involved and questions the effectiveness of current deterrence and border control measures implemented by both France and the UK. This issue remains a highly contentious focal point for immigration policy discussions in the UK and Europe, with debates raging over border security, asylum processing, and humane treatment of migrants. This death is a stark reminder of the human cost of political inaction or ineffective policies, and the need for comprehensive, humane strategies for migration management.
A constant human tragedy unfolding there. And let's revisit the Jeffrey Epstein case. More documents released.
Yes, newly released letters and documents continue to emerge as part of ongoing investigations and legal processes. This latest batch reportedly includes a birthday note described as nostalgic and warm, sent from former President Bill Clinton to Jeffrey Epstein years ago. It also apparently includes a separate note from President Donald Trump, also from some time ago. These were released as part of a congressional investigation.
Clinton and Trump both corresponding with Epstein. What's the significance now?
These documents provide further glimpses, however small, into the nature and extent of Epstein's ties with powerful and influential figures across various sectors of society. While the content might seem innocuous on the surface, their release raises renewed questions about accountability, judgment, and the nature of these associations, especially in light of the extremely serious allegations of sex trafficking and abuse against Epstein and his associates. It underscores the ongoing public and legal scrutiny regarding Epstein's network and the implications these connections have for the reputations and legacies of the public figures involved.
And it's not just American politicians. A former UK politician also commented on his Epstein ties.
That's right. Peter Mandelson, a prominent figure in UK politics who served as a European commissioner, recently expressed what he called tremendous regret over his past friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. He referred to the association as an albatross around my neck.
And an albatross around my neck. Strong words.
Indeed. It highlights that complex interplay between personal relationships formed in the past, public perception changing drastically in the present, political accountability, and the intense moral scrutiny that public figures face, especially when associated, even historically, with individuals accused of heinous crimes.
Okay, now for a truly bizarre story. Someone jumping off a cruise ship to evade debt.
Slight chuckle. Yes, this one is rather extraordinary. A passenger named Jay Gonzalez Diaz reportedly jumped overboard from a cruise ship, allegedly to escape a $16,000 gambling debt he had accumulated on board in the ship's casino. He was later rescued but then arrested, apparently for evading monetary reporting regulations related to the debt or winnings.
Jumping overboard. That's dramatic. I guess the house always wins, even at sea.
Well, it certainly highlights the potential risks associated with irresponsible gambling, which can be readily available on cruise ships. It also raises secondary issues about passenger safety, emergency response procedures at sea, and the specific regulations surrounding gambling debts incurred in international waters. A very unusual case.
Definitely unusual. And a concerning story from the world of professional sports officiating in the UK.
Yes, a former Premier League football soccer referee, referred to as Coot in reports, is facing trial in Nottingham, England. He is accused of making an indecent image of a child. He denies the charges.
A referee accused of such a serious crime.
It raises immediate questions about the vetting processes, background checks, and ongoing monitoring for individuals in positions of high responsibility and public trust within sports organizations. It also feeds into broader societal conversations about preventing sexual misconduct, protecting children, and ensuring accountability regardless of an individual's professional status.
Important questions indeed. Let's end this section on a more positive comparative note. The tiny island nation health model.
Yes, this refers to a case study, often highlighted in public health discussions, of a specific small island nation. The exact nation isn't always named to protect privacy or avoid diplomatic issues, but the model is well documented. This nation consistently boasts universal health care coverage for its citizens, achieves significantly lower rates of chronic diseases like diabetes and heart disease, and has a higher average life expectancy compared to, for example, the United States. And crucially, it achieves these superior outcomes at a significantly lower per capita cost.
Universal care, better outcomes, lower cost. How do they do it?
The key seems to be a strong emphasis on prioritizing preventive care and promoting healthy lifestyles throughout the community. This includes robust public health programs, easy access to primary care, potentially dietary habits influenced by traditional, less processed foods, and strong community engagement in health initiatives. They report lower cancer rates and generally superior dietary metrics compared to many wealthier nations.
So it's a systemic approach focused on prevention.
Exactly. It serves as a powerful case study for public health policy globally. It offers valuable insights into how systemic healthcare reforms focused on prevention, primary care access, and community health can lead to demonstrably better population health outcomes, potentially even more effectively and efficiently than systems focused primarily on treating diseases after they arise.
Definitely food for thought for healthcare systems everywhere. Just a few cultural notes before we wrap up.
Right. For listeners in California, the 2025 Tulare County Fair is likely underway or upcoming, a vibrant local event showcasing livestock competitions, a popular destruction derby, diverse food options, and live music, fostering community spirit.
And an exhibition looking back at East German history.
Yes, an exhibition titled Wohnkomplex, Art and Life in Plattenbau, is exploring the legacy of East Germany's iconic prefabricated concrete housing blocks. It examines collective memory, architectural history, and the societal changes associated with these structures built expensively after World War II.
And finally, a super university in the UK.
Yes, reports indicate that 2 universities in the UK are planning to merge in 2026. This move comes amid significant financial pressures facing the higher education sector in the UK. It reflects an evolving landscape where consolidation might become more common as institutions seek efficiency and stability. It could create a larger, potentially more influential super university, but also raises questions about local identity and access, sports highlights, and natural wonders.
Okay, let's wrap up our deep dive today with a quick look at the sports world and one natural event. First, football.
Erling Haaland. He's just unstoppable, isn't he? He really does seem like a phenomenon. The Manchester City striker's extraordinary goal-scoring ability is attributed by analysts to a potent combination of factors. Incredible speed for his size, immense physical strength, surprisingly refined technical skills, exceptional positioning and movement off the ball — he always seems to be in the right place — and a powerful mental drive and focus.
As the whole package, physical and mental.
Exactly. His physical attributes combined with his absolutely clinical finishing make him a constant threat. And of course, playing within Manchester City's highly structured tactical system under Pep Guardiola, which is designed to create scoring chances, certainly helps maximize his potential. He's really become a defining player in modern football, constantly breaking records and showcasing a unique blend of raw power and intelligent play.
Meanwhile, crosstown rivals Manchester United, things aren't looking quite as rosy on the results front.
Results-wise, it's been tough for them, yes.
Oh.
Reports note they've only managed 2 Premier League wins since early April. However, statistical analysis suggests there might be underlying improvement happening under their manager, Ruben Amorim. Deeper metrics apparently show better ball possession stats, increased shot creation compared to earlier periods, and perhaps growing tactical cohesion within the team.
So the stats look better, but the wins aren't coming. What's going wrong?
It seems individual mistakes at crucial moments, perhaps injuries to key players, or simply poor finishing, not converting the chances they create, have often let them down and cost them points. The analysis suggests that if they can improve their efficiency in front of goal and cut out the errors, the positive underlying performance metrics could start translating into better results on the scoreboard. It encourages looking beyond just wins and losses sometimes.
Interesting. Now, for a major upset in South American World Cup qualifiers, Bolivia beat Brazil.
Yes, a stunning result. Bolivia triumphed 1-0 over the 5-time World Cup champions Brazil. This crucial victory secured Bolivia a spot in the FIFA World Cup 2026 Intercontinental Playoff. The decisive goal came from a penalty converted by Miguel Terceros.
Wow. Beating Brazil is huge for Bolivia.
Yeah.
How does that leave the qualifying group?
It shook things up. On the same day, Argentina actually lost 1-0 to Ecuador, but Argentina still remained in first place in the overall standings. Colombia, Uruguay, and Paraguay also secured key results, solidifying their positions for direct qualification or playoff spots. Bolivia now prepares for those crucial intercontinental playoffs scheduled for March 2026, set to be held in Monterrey and Guadalajara, Mexico. It's a massive boost for Bolivian football hopes and adds a thrilling dimension to the qualifiers.
A true underdog story. Now, shifting to a controversial development in sport, the Enhanced Games. An Olympic medalist joined.
Yes, this is causing quite a stir. Olympic swimmer Ben Proud has become the first British athlete to sign up for the controversial Enhanced Games. This is a proposed new competition that explicitly permits, even encourages, the use of performance-enhancing substances, albeit supposedly within a regulated medical supervision framework.
Allowing PEDs. Wow. How does Proud justify this?
Proud himself insists he remains committed to clean sport within the traditional Olympic framework and states his participation in the Enhanced Games won't compromise his integrity or his participation in conventional competitions. However, his decision has inevitably sparked a significant and passionate debate about the future of sports, the ethical implications of performance enhancement, the definition of fair play, and the potential normalization of drug use in athletics.
It really challenges the whole foundation of anti-doping efforts, doesn't it?
Fundamentally, it raises critical questions about regulation, fairness, the long-term health risks for athletes involved, and the very essence of what we value in competition: natural human ability versus technologically or pharmacologically augmented performance. Critics argue it could create a damaging two-tiered system in sport and undermine decades of anti-doping work. It has broad implications for Proud's career, his legacy, and certainly fuels the ongoing complex discourse on drugs and athletics.
A debate that's likely just beginning. Okay, quickly to the WNBA, the Women's National Basketball Association in the U.S.
Yes, the Seattle Storm clinched a playoff berth. They secured their spot with a nail-biting 74-73 comeback victory over the Valkyries. That win also had the consequence of eliminating the Los Angeles Sparks from playoff contention. It highlights the resilience and high level of competitiveness in the WNBA, especially as teams battle fiercely for those crucial postseason opportunities.
High stakes in the WNBA.
Yeah.
And finally, a quick note on managing nature's power, a controlled avalanche.
Yes, this was in New Zealand. Authorities there executed a planned, controlled avalanche using explosives near the road leading to Milford Sound. Milford Sound is a very popular tourist destination in a region prone to heavy snowfall and natural
It is
avalanches.
a deliberately triggered an avalanche. Why?
It's a proactive safety measure. By triggering smaller, controlled snowslides in a monitored environment, they reduce the buildup of unstable snowpack that could lead to a much larger, uncontrolled, and potentially devastating natural avalanche later on. It's a common practice in mountainous regions worldwide to mitigate risks and enhance safety for travelers and infrastructure, balancing the preservation of stunning natural landscapes with the paramount need for public safety. Outro.
Wow, what an absolutely incredible deep dive today. I mean, from literally recreating the Big Bang in a lab to the intricate, often really turbulent dance of global diplomacy, and covering everything from the invisible threat of nanoplastics in our water bottles to, well, those powerful ethical debates shaping the future of sport. It's clear our world is just buzzing with activity and change.
Indeed, it really is. And the profound threads connecting these diverse stories, I think, are things like knowledge, innovation, and that persistent human drive. The drive to understand, to shape, and sometimes to fiercely defend our environment, our societies, and our place within it all. What's truly fascinating when you look at this week's stack is how seemingly disparate events, like a new AI chip being developed in China and maybe a proposed change to contactless payment limits in the UK, they're all part of the same complex, interconnected tapestry of our global society.
Right. So what does all this mean for you listening right now? Well, it means understanding that maybe the quantum formulas being figured out today could actually power the devices you use tomorrow. It means recognizing that the protests over economic pressure in France might reflect similar pressures felt in many other places, maybe even your own community. And it means appreciating that even the smallest ocean microbe or the finest particle of air pollution plays a vital role in our planet's health and our own well-being. It's really about trying to be prepared for what's coming next, seeing the underlying patterns, and perhaps even understanding where you might fit into these unfolding narratives, maybe even influencing them in your own way.
And as we grapple with this ever-increasing speed of innovation, alongside what feels like a growing fragmentation of global politics and shared understanding, it really raises an important, maybe unsettling question for us all. In a world where AI can now predict solar storms with decent accuracy, and where physicists can simulate the universe's infancy in a laboratory, are we as humans actually getting any better at predicting and preventing our own geopolitical storms, our own societal crises, our own self-inflicted wounds? Or are we simply creating more sophisticated, more powerful tools for an ever more complex and perhaps ultimately a more volatile future?
Something profound to ponder as you go about your week. Until next time, keep digging deeper.